Mm, okay, so we'll say vi index.php. Okay, so in this PHP file, what is the? So I think I actually sent an email to everybody, and it looks like Nirajan did not get that email. So give me one moment, guys. I'll actually resend it to Nirajan. Yeah, so Nirajan is here. Load. Okay, so what we're doing here, so I've just sent the GoToMeeting link over to Nirajan, so he'll join in a bit. So what we're doing here is we actually are making an AJAX call. Okay, and it looks like we are actually getting the name from this text box over here, and we are actually making the AJAX call. So let's actually open this page up in the browser so that we have more idea as to what this is. This is ajax slash index.html. Okay, so it will be www.training. Okay, ajax.index.html. So why do we have this? Okay, so I guess this data is here just to say that everything is happening asynchronously. Okay, so so let's actually say user one. Okay, when we say user one, I would say okay, it says hello other person. So let's actually go back to the code. Oh, okay. So we were looking for John or Jane. If not, we would print out hello other person. Okay. Okay. Would have been easier if we just take the name rather than making it complex, and we can just like bind it. So let's say if is set name, if so, let's actually print the name. For concatenation in PHP, we would say dollar get name. Yeah, so see, there is another good function that we can use. Rather than isSet, we can say empty. Okay, empty would check for both null values and zero length values. Okay, at that point we could say name not available. Okay, so there would be cases where mischievous users would enter nothing into the text box and click submit. Okay, at that point we would actually print the name. Yeah, so we have Nirajan who's just joined. Nirajan, do you have any questions from the last session or any sessions before that?
No, no.
Okay, so let's actually continue. So let's actually reload the page. And did we go through this Ajax syntax the other day, or did we just like look at it and like just load the page? Did we discuss this Ajax syntax? Yes, no, anybody? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so let's actually discuss what exactly is Ajax, and uh, yeah. But before that, let's actually load the page and see. Okay, so when I say user one, it says name not available. Interesting. So I guess I have done something. Oh yes, it should say if not empty, right? Because if it is empty, if it is not empty, at that point we should print the name. If not, we would say name not available. Okay, let's reload the page. See here, the beauty is we wouldn't even have to reload the page. The reason being, if I say submit, it should say hello user, because the page is being reloaded for every request anyways. So we wouldn't have to reload the page. So I would say hello. Oh no, hello user 2, hello user 3, and the and so on. The data would show up. Fine. Now let's actually see what exactly is going on here. Okay, so let's go to the net or the network tab. Okay, clear everything up. Okay, so let's actually look at what exactly is happening visually, and we'll take a look at it as to what is triggering this behavior from the code. Okay, so all I'm doing in here is, I would say user 4. Okay, and I'm saying submit. On click of submit, there is a new request that has been made. Okay, and let's actually go through each tab to verify what kind of request is this. Okay, let's actually see if it's an HTML request. No. If it's a CSS request. No. If it's a script request or a JavaScript request. No. If the request was made as an image. No. Okay, of course Flash and media we will not discuss, but yeah, even that one isn't their request. It is an XHR request. Okay, XHR is XML HTTP request. Okay, so XML HTTP request is an API. Okay, that provides the XML HTTP request object. Okay, what we can do with XML HTTP request object is we can actually make HTTP requests. Okay, via, I mean, if we use it from the browser, we'll be using JavaScript to make the XML HTTP request object. Okay, the use, I mean, so many of us are under the assumption that Ajax is XML HTTP request and XML HTTP request is Ajax, but it is not true. Okay, we can make both synchronous and asynchronous requests via XML HTTP, but for our purpose, we will only be making asynchronous requests. Okay, the next question is going to be, what exactly is an asynchronous request? Okay, let's actually open up stripe.com. Okay, so if the user makes a call to http cnn.com okay, at that point the cnn.com, yeah, so at that point there may be 15 things, okay, that have to load. Okay, the first thing is going to be say component 1, I don't know, so component 1, component 2, and so on up to component, yeah, 15. Okay, what exactly is a component? Okay, component could be anything that is on the page, say something that is on the right hand side. Okay, people actually call it a right rail. Okay, or something that is so let's actually open up cnn.com. Okay, so okay, so I'll actually stop it here because it's too much data. Okay, so this could be its own data, the menu could be its own data. Okay, this thing here could be its own data, this thing could be its own data. So for this whole page to load, component 1 has to load, then component 2 has to load, then component 3 has to load, and so on up to component 15. Okay, and unless component 15 loads, okay, the page load doesn't complete. Okay, after component 15 loads, page load is complete. Okay, yeah, page load is complete, and until page load is complete, okay, what happens is the DOM is not going to be accessible. So here, see, I mean, this one's still running. Okay, so now page load is available. Okay, before this the page load is not available. So this in itself is a synchronous request where component 1 has to load, then component 2 has to load, then component 15 has to load. Okay, so at a time there is only one active request that is being handled by the by the server for a user. Okay, which says that if component 1 loads fine, go to next one. If component 2 loads fine, go to next one. But if component 3 fails, okay, the page would fail there. Okay, it wouldn't actually go to the next step, which is, I wouldn't say bad behavior, but it is blocking behavior. Okay, now to avoid that, so this is synchronous. So this is synchronous. Okay, now to avoid this, what we have is the other form, which is asynchronous website. Okay, or asynchronous request. If there are 15 things, of course, in any on any website, not all would actually be asynchronous requests, but there can be places where we can actually say that, okay, we can actually pick these three things, okay, which might not be uh, which might not be the same as every other request. Okay, and let's make it asynchronous. So at that point we would say component 1, component 2, component 3, okay, up to component 10 are synchronous. But oh, you know what, I cannot use tab. So but here component 11 is asynchronous. Okay, which means that component 11 has no bearing on the page load of on this page load. Okay, component 11, because it is asynchronous. Okay, so whenever it loads, it can load at any point. Okay, then component 12 is also asynchronous, and so on up to component 15. Okay, so there are 5 components which are asynchronous, while the other 10 are synchronous components, which means that these 5 components will not block these 10 components. Okay, now that is asynchronous development. Okay, let's leave the page, and here, so that is what is happening here. So I'm actually making a request. Okay, nothing on the page changes, and only this data changes. Now the question might be, is this basic JavaScript? No, we actually are making actual HTTP requests, okay, which actually are getting the data from a working web server. Okay, now that we have a background understanding of what exactly is the deal with this website and with Ajax, let's actually go in here, okay, and look at all the components. Okay, so there are 3 components here. Okay, the first component is obviously the DOM is the document object model, and the document object model has 2 internal pieces. The first one is a text box, okay, which is actually taking the input from the user. Okay, the second one is the button. Okay, so the button is pretty much the component which is actually inviting the user to make some kind of action or to take some kind of action. Okay, now when the user clicks this button, okay, with the ID of submit, okay, we are using the second component or second stakeholder, which is JavaScript, to perform some kind of action. Okay, Now what does JavaScript do? When the button is clicked, okay, when the button is clicked, we actually are binding, we actually have a click event for this button. Okay, so when the button is clicked, the first step that we do is to get the data from the text box. Okay, and then we actually are making an ajax request. Okay, ajax, we probably would have already discussed, is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Okay, in the ajax request we actually are sending in two parameters. Okay, the first parameter is a URL and the second parameter is the data parameter or the data property. Okay, so the URL is obviously going to be the URL to which the ajax request is being made. Okay, which is index.php, that is this file, and then we actually are passing data to this file. And since we are not specifying any method, okay, jQuery assumes that if the data is not if the method is not specifically provided, okay, at that point it is going to be a get request method. Okay, so these are these pretty much are like the two basic parameters for this ajax function. Okay, and here once this request is made, okay, yeah, what happens is the data, okay, is passed over to this file. Okay, and the HTTP request is made. Here the HTTP request would be received by the web server. Okay, and what it looks for is the name property. Okay, if the name exists, it is going to print this data. If not, it would actually print something else. And the data that comes back is going to be HTML or basic text data that comes back. That text data would actually be fed into this response variable, okay, or this response parameter, and we are blindly taking that response parameter and we are putting it into user message, yeah, so into this div. Okay, so this div would actually carry that message, and we actually have a ghost div which just sits there so that we know that the page is not reloading. Okay, now at this point let me quickly ask you all if you have any questions.
I'm good.
Oh, you're good, perfect. So now that we have a basic idea of how an ajax request is made, okay, let's actually look at what are the other things that we can do with this ajax request. Okay, so let's say ajax jQuery. Okay, so again we are using jQuery. uh, at some point let's also look at how an ajax request is made from JavaScript. It's a I mean it's always good to understand what the basics are, so we'll actually look at that at some point. Now see, I mean there's a lot of unnecessary data that's given in here. Hmm. So we have already looked at data. Okay, so that is good. Now the next thing that we'll have to look at, okay, we can look at content type in a little bit. Okay, and then for now, um, So let's see if there is a method property. Yeah. Oh, it is type. Okay, so it's type. Let's look for type. Yeah, so it's type. Where did that go? Yeah. So this is how you would actually uh so we look for type. The next thing has to be, yeah, we look at fail also. Okay. So let's actually do that first. So now what we have done until here, yeah, is we've actually posted data using type. I'm sorry, we have sent data across the server using get. Now let's actually create a quick form. Let's get rid of this thing. You know what? Let's actually keep that there. Now let's actually quickly add a little CSS. Style type is equal to text slash CSS style. So we'll target lorem ipsum. So all I've done is I've just given in some gray background. So we can actually come to this Firebug, and we can actually start creating some rules for this. I mean directly on the Firebug, so that we can at the end, when we are okay with it, we can actually carry this data back to our thing. Okay. So what we've done, the first thing is so the div. Oh, okay. So it looks like I've given the width to this guy. So let's actually get rid of it. Okay. Let's actually give the uh, give our CSS, dude. Yeah, to this div. Okay, we'll say width 500 pixel, not more. Or let's actually make it 800 pixels. Okay, and then we'll say float left. Also, let's actually say display inline block. Okay, now let's actually, oh, just happened. Let's copy this part. Okay, so let's actually go back in here and let's paste it. Okay, so now let's actually create a polling application. Okay, so div id is equal to poll, or like a rating application. Probably polling might give you all a different idea. It's more of a rating application. And here we'll actually have a list in an ordered list. And there should be li. Let's actually put the question first. We'll say paragraph. Um, let's say what is your gender. Okay. Okay, so in here, let's give a input type radio button. Input type radio name is equal to man. No. Gender. Okay, and then value is equal to value is equal to man. I think we'll also have to give a group gender group. So and here let's get rid of this for now. So have more space. Input type is equal to radio name is equal to gender group is equal to gender group value is equal to home. So let's actually quickly pop this up into the browser and see how does that look. Okay, so it looks like I'll have to give a label. Okay, we can do that. And what are these here? Oh, you know what? So this is the CSS for that gender thing. So let's also get rid of that. Okay, so let's give a ID to this thing. It's going to be poll list. Okay, and the first thing, let's put in a label. On a tangential note, do you all watch cricket?
Used to a little bit.
Used to? Okay. Mumbai Indians just won the semi-final, and they've actually beat. They've 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 actually won against a non-Indian team, so that is always good. And they're in the Champions League
Mm,
T20 final.
that's nice. How's Sunrisers doing?
Pretty bad. We actually lost, I guess, before we made it to quarters. We played a good. I mean, it was we did good in the qualifiers, but we
Mm.
lost it when it mattered.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. See, this season hasn't been good for most of the teams that I support. Texas A&M is not doing good. Manchester United is not doing good. Who else? So Denver Broncos are doing fine. Houston Texans haven't been doing good. Kimi
Mm.
Raikkonen isn't been doing good. So Kimi Raikkonen is F1. So none of them are doing good. So, but at least one of them is doing fine. Denver Broncos. Hopefully they do well. Keep doing well.
Fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, unless the old man gets injured, I think that we'll at least get into the playoffs for NFL. It's actually been
You
doing good.
serious? Denver? Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
for some reason, I've actually been supporting them uh, from last season. Yeah, last season they did not do well. They did not qualify for the playoffs. But this season they seem like they will qualify.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I used to
Let's
support
see.
Dallas
NFL
Cowboys.
Super Bowl.
Huh?
Hmm. I don't mind. Dallas Cowboys. I'm from Dallas.
Oh, you're from Dallas? Yeah.
I went
Nice.
to school in Dallas.
Oh, okay. Which one?
SMU. SMU.
SMU?
Uh, yeah, Southern Methodist University. The one which Bush went to.
Oh,
We are
wow.
all Bush people.
Oh, Bush people. Okay. But yeah, yeah. When I used to
Hardcore
support them,
Republican school.
hardcore Republicans. How are you doing in California then? That's a Democrat hub, right?
I I went to a hardcore Republican school. Then I worked in a very democratic state. Yeah, I like democratism better than republic people.
Really?
So yeah, yeah.
No, I was. And my next question was going to be, is Bill O'Reilly your favorite anchor? But never mind.
No, we have Bill Maher for it.
Really, Bill Maher? Oh
Yeah.
boy. See, I don't want to be like a negative person, but I like him. I don't dislike Bill Maher, but man, I think he's like a complete biased. I don't know. I'm trying to
He
be,
is. Are you kidding? He is.
yeah, and
Bill
yeah,
Maher.
he's very vast.
Bill Maher. You
Yeah.
should see him. He's on a roll anyway. We get HBO only for him.
Really?
Yeah,
See, I'd
because
actually get HBO for the other thing. What is it? The News Hour. I like that. Uh, I like that show.
anyways, yeah, we are Democrats. On
Oh,
and on.
oh no. So are you supporting what is this? The
The
new,
shutdown.
huh?
Obama. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Kidding? Why?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you should. So I should blame you for paying more taxes then.
I pay the taxes too. Kidding?
See, blame yourself then.
Uh,
Go find a mirror.
no, no, no. It's fine. I've lived in that Republican state. No, no, thank you. No, thanks to them. So our speaker was Laura Bush, I guess. The convocation day.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they sit on the board, so you can imagine how Republican we are that way.
Yeah. I mean, I would say you're better being a Republican rather than a Democrat, man. Come on. I
Okay,
mean, not.
anyways, good for you.
I mean, not that I'm more of a religious person, but I think I'm more of a liberal. I like Ron Paul. He's from Texas too.
Oh,
Not a Bush supporter, but I'm more of a Ron Paul supporter. Anyways, let's get back to polling.
okay, we are polling.
Poll.
We were polling too.
Nice. So, yeah. So, the first thing that we have to do is get rid of Obama. No, I'm saying get rid of those bullets. List style type. None. Okay, so that would fix the bullets issue that we were having. The next thing will be, so let's actually reload the page. I kind of forgot. So we have, okay, so the bullets are gone. Man, woman, okay, they are there. So I think that's good enough. Okay, so the final thing that we would need is, let's actually align it to the right hand side or to the center so that it's not adjacent, or we could even add some margin so that there is some distance or like a visible distance between these things. So for poll, let's create a rule and let's say margin left 20 pixel, and that didn't work. So how would that work? Hmm, okay, so oh, you know what? It's floating, right? So we'll have to make it relative. Okay, so let's actually go in here.
What is floating and relative?
Yeah, so let's actually look at that. Okay, so what we have done here is we actually want this to be on the left hand side. Okay, so that is why we have to say it is floating left. Okay, if we say float right, it would actually be the other way. Okay, since users, okay, so this is more of a UX thing. So users actually go from uh, top left to bottom right. Okay, so any important information, any textual information should always show up on the top left. So that's why we have our text on the top left. Okay, so that's why we actually are floating it to this way. And since we want a polling application adjacent to this item, okay, what we have done is we have actually said that this has to be 800 pixels width and it is floating. So when it floats, okay, everything is considered to be absolute. And when I actually do this, we can see that this this div here, okay, is actually starting from here. But since we are floating it with this guy in middle, it is actually here. So to start from this div and not from the page, what we would say is we'll have to make the position relative. When we make the position relative, it would actually look for the topmost element or the, yeah, the topmost element, or the, not the topmost, the element which is right on top of it. Okay, which should be this lower MIPSum div. Okay, so let's actually add the position and let's see if that makes a difference. So let's actually, yeah, so we'll actually do that for the pole div though. Okay, because the idea of the div is pole and we want the whole div to be relative. So let's say margin left is 10 pixel, and even before margin pixel it's a position relative. Yeah, and see, let's see what happens here. That did not make a difference. Hmm. Yeah, see, I mean the yellow thing that we see here, because the rest of it is blue, is the 10 pixel margin. So if I actually put in 100, the yellow thing should actually be bigger. Yeah, so it means that the relative position did not help. Let's display, no, not block, inline block. Okay, so yeah, so as soon as we did a display inline block, the position, I mean the margin started taking it. And the reason that the margin did not uh, take the relative positioning, okay, was originally, I mean, like we have already discussed, divs and paragraphs and headers and almost all the elements actually, what is it, are block level elements, which means that when they actually are created, they take the whole, what is it, line or whole block. Okay, awesome. So now what happens here is, if you actually mention that it is relative and then mention that it should actually share the space with this guy, okay, at that point the relative functionality starts taking place. Okay, now let's actually be a little more, I mean, be better programmers and say we need 20 pixels. See, even that doesn't make a lot of difference, so let's say 50. Yeah, so now this actually kind of shows that we have more space. So let's actually go back, okay, and add the data in here, or add the styles in here. We said display inline block. Okay. The last thing that we'll have to do is to add a submit button. Yeah. So let's actually do that here. Input type. Oh, you know what? We'll just say button. So it's just a button. It's not a submit button. We'll say input type button. Name submit value. Yeah, we'll just keep it simple and we'll say submit. Okay. And we'll also have to give an ID because we want to bind a callback or an bind a callback to this button. So we'll say submit. Easy. Now let's actually get rid of this stuff here. Okay. So we already have a click handler for submit. Okay, which kind of cuts our work. The next thing that we'll have to do is let's actually save this and go on to the page, refresh it. Okay, now um, do we have margin more than 20? Yeah, we actually had 50. So let's actually modify it real quick. Better. Okay, so now on click of submit, something should happen. Okay, if I choose that, something has to happen. Okay, and the only reason that some one of them is already pre-checked is because both of them belong to the same group, which means that one of them has to be the value for that group. Okay, so now let's actually go back and write the handler for this one. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to check for what is the selected value. Okay, and the way that we can do is, so let's see, is var gender is equal to, we'll begin by getting the name. Okay, so I'm guessing it's going to be input name is equal to gender. I don't think we'll have to give the single quotes, but let's actually keep them for now. You know what, let's actually do this here before so that we can at least verify that on the console. Okay, I mean, since we have access to console, why not, right? So we'll say dollar input type, no, name, name is equal to gender. Okay, perfect. Okay, and here all we'll do is, I guess we can say val. Yeah, perfect. But interestingly, we did not get the selected value, we got the first value. So let's actually input jQuery selected value. Dot checked. So dot checked would be an attribute. Okay, so let's actually go back in here. So I think we should be able to do this. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so this is how we'll do it. Okay, so if we actually have what is it, if we actually have an input, but like an input box. Okay, what we'll do is we'll actually say we might have an ID. We would say ID. ID would be say text box dot val, right? But here both of see ID has to be unique, so we cannot actually look have an ID which should be equal for both of these radio buttons. Okay, so it has to be a name which can be generic. Okay, and which we can actually use for grouping. Okay, so what we do here is we actually are going to use the input selector. Okay, inside the input selector we would actually pass in the attribute of name. Okay, which is name is equal to the name of this radio button is going to be gender. Okay, and once we have the gender we would actually be using uh, the checked property. Okay, to see which one is checked, and then once we know that one of them is checked we would actually uh, grab the value out of it. Okay, so we'll be using this selector to grab the data. Oh, by the way, did you guys talk to Prashant about your resumes? Anybody?
No.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is we have around 1 or 2 weeks left before, what is it? You all can like start, what is it? Looking for and like taking calls. Okay. So what I would say is, oh, you know what? Let's actually do that at 2:30. Okay. So from 2:30 to 3 today, let's actually go through what all can you all do to prepare yourselves for the phone calls. Okay. So here, what we are doing here is we actually are getting the value of the what poll? Yeah, the gender poll. Okay, so we can actually say that this poll is used for us to do our analytics, where we would actually keep a track of how many men come onto our website versus how many women. Okay, not that this is a scientific polling or like a scientific data, but this is one of those random uh, data collection things that we can do to keep a track of what is the uh, this is more of a gender tracking as to like who is this website popular with. Because as an example, say Dr. Ozas for example is more of a website for housewives, because housewives and old people who actually like Dr. Oz and like take a lot of what is it, advices. Yeah, advices, that's a real word, from Dr. Oz and his shows. So that is, this is another way of tracking people. Okay, yeah. So now what we'll do is, again we'll actually fire up another Ajax request. Okay, and we'll say, oh, you know what, we would need you know what, let's actually do it in a different way. Okay, we'll say, let's actually bind it to a variable. Okay, oh, you know what, never mind. If you do that, it'll get a little more confusing. Let's actually have a done function which would take a callback, and done is always going to expect a response. Let's actually get this back to this place. The URL is going to be, again we'll keep it simple, as index.php. URL is index.php data, of course. Data is going to be gender is the gender variable. Okay, so we actually will be grabbing it here. Okay, so let's actually send this data, okay, via what is it, via get, and then let's actually send the same data via post. Okay, and then here we'll also have another message block. Okay, you know what, let's actually take this here. Okay, and yeah, yeah, so here all that we'll have to do is we'll again grab the in the done, when it is success, we'll actually grab the message id, and we would say text is response. Okay, so we're actually trusting our server side to send the response back. Okay, the yeah, the other thing here is, yeah, let's actually take a look at the response, and we'll actually look at the other part that I was going to tell you all. Let's say sudo bash cd rww training ajax vi index.php. So here there are only two cases, right? It is either man, or it can either be woman, and it's gender. Okay, gender double equal to man, else uh, echo. Okay, so if it's man, I'll say hey man. Okay, see, I cannot say hey woman, so I'll say hello woman. Okay, for some reason I've never heard anybody say hey woman, right? So it has to be hello woman for some reason. Now let's actually, yeah, so let's actually predict what will happen here on this web page. Okay, we would be clicking submit, then there would actually be a div that would pop up on top, and that would actually say hey man or hey woman or whatever that would happen. Okay, so since you have made changes to the HTML and JavaScript, we'll have to reload the page. Okay, and when I say submit, it will say hey man, says, it will say hello woman. Okay, again it will say hey man. Here, wouldn't it be nice if it's a little more what is it, a little more animated and a little more or a little better? I mean, come on, why should we just because see, as soon as I click submit, it's a very in your face kind of a thing where it shows up as hey man. So why not make it better, and why not make it where it actually toggles down slowly? Okay, for that what we can use is jQuery's toggle function. Okay, jQuery toggle. So there are a bunch of toggles that we can do, and let's pick one of them. mm, See around, so let's actually see what is a type, so that we can actually fx basics. See, show and hide are pretty simple. So let's actually go back. Let's go back to effects. Slide down. Yeah, slide down probably is a good way of handling it. Okay. So let's actually look at, so yeah, so what it does is if we click it, okay, it would actually come down slowly. Okay, so now let's actually do that, but for this we'll have to make sure that this one is hidden. So let's actually, on the message, do we have like a CSS for message? Okay, we don't. So let's actually say hash message, message, we said display none, which means that the div wouldn't show up unless we trigger it to show. Okay, and the way we can trigger it is, you say message, we are actually filling in the text here, and then we'll say dollar message dot, what is it, slide down. Let's actually take a look at it real quick. Yeah, yeah, we don't need a complete function, so we would just say slide down slow. Okay, so now let's actually see what happens here. And since again it's more of a HTML and JavaScript change, we'll have to modify, I mean like, what is it, we'll have to refresh the page. See now that actually looks better, right? Because if I actually do that, it is more of a simple slide down where the user shouldn't deal with an in your face message which actually shows up at its will. It is a slow transition that actually comes from the top of the web page. Okay, so now here we have already seen Heyman here, but another way of handling the same polling application is going to be by taking this away, because now I'm a mischievous poller. What I would say is I do not have a lot of work to do, and I'm actually sitting at my office slacking off. Okay, all I will do is I'll say woman, okay, then I'll say man, then I'll say woman, and I'll keep on messing with the application. We should not allow the user to do that. Okay, the way we can do that is by taking this div away. Okay, so now let's actually take the message part out. Okay, okay, so here what we'll do is we are going to, so what we'll do is we'll actually um id gender question, and since it's a question, let's add a question mark. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll actually take the whole content from the poll. Okay, replace this content with this information, and since it's on a, I mean again, since it's a poll, we'll say hey, hey man, the I don't know, the poll is complete. The poll is complete. Okay, okay, so what we'll do is we'll actually, rather than adding it to the message info or the message div, we'll be doing it to the poll div. Okay, so we'll say dollar hash message dot, no, not message, it'll be poll. So this has to be HTML because we are actually replacing the HTML for the poll div, which is response. Okay, everything that was already in there should go away. Okay, and the new stuff should show up. or the response should actually show up. Okay, we'll just submit. See, at that point everything is gone and this message would show up. Okay, which actually doesn't allow the user to hit that submit button again and again and so on. Okay, so we've actually looked at a standard Ajax request, a standard polling widget which allows users to submit a poll and submit their answers once during the page execution. At the same time, we've also seen ways to handle the way or the effect that the message should show up. One via a slide down and the other by replacing the whole poll widget and giving the users a good message which says that the poll has been completed. At this point, let me quickly ask you all if there are any questions.
Looks very put together, but I'm a little freaked out right now.
Your word?
Freaked out. I don't know if I'll be able to do all this.
Yeah. I mean, again, Pooja, it's pretty simple. It actually might actually sound a little complex, but I mean, trust me, it's like it's super simple. The only challenge with Ajax is to uh, is to understand that user experience is of paramount importance, because Ajax is, I mean, Ajax pretty much is a boon, but we'll have to understand that the reason that it's there is not to fetch data at will. The reason it's there is to fetch data to improve the responsiveness of the website and to improve the user experience while the user is interacting with the website. Yeah, so it's I mean, technology wise it's pretty simple. I mean, this is what I tell everybody. Technology is always simple because it's just a piece of code. The most important thing is to understand why are we doing and what exactly is the benefit to the website, which kind of ends up to understand as in what is the end benefit to the business, right? How are we enhancing anything for the business? So that is always important. With that being said, let's actually look at the, so again, so let's actually refresh the page. So again, we are coders, so it's always important for us to understand how is data getting from point A to point B, right? So we'll say, what is your gender? The person submits, hey man, the poll is complete. That's the message that shows up. And the way that happens is, as soon as we click submit, the request is fired, okay, and it is clear that it's a get request. The simple reason for that being, okay, the simple reason for that being, what is it? Yeah, the query string here, okay. And if we look at parameters, we actually are saying that gender is equal to man. That is the parameter that we are sending out, and the response, okay, that is coming back is this one, which is hey man, the poll is complete, okay. And again, since we are not sending any specific data like say XML or anything else, the data that would come back would always be of either type text or type HTML. Okay, always keep that in mind. And one way to verify that, okay, would be via the headers. Okay, so so the way we can verify that it's either text or HTML, okay, is by looking at this content type field. Okay, it's text slash HTML. Okay, then if we want to verify that the request was made via the XML HTTP request object, this is the way we can verify. You say X requested with is XML HTTP request. Okay, I mean, the only reason that I'm mentioning these is you all would actually be going out as experienced senior PHP developers. So how much you know is obviously going to matter, but how do you present it is going to matter as well, because people would always look for communication skills, and communication comes with the with how much you know, as in terms of what kind of words do you use and how easily do you use. When somebody says asynchronous request, what how do you react to it? Do you freak out, or like do you say it's tough or you haven't used it, or do you just say it's very simple, I've used it for a long time, and all this kind of stuff. So it's always important. So I mean, yeah, long story short, use the Firebug, okay, and get familiar with these terms. One is going to be XML HTTP request object, first thing. The second thing is going to be content type, okay. Content type is the content type of the data that's coming back. We'll actually look at other content types, okay. The third most important thing is how uh, how comfortable are you all with, say something like uh, what is this, Firebug, okay. So this Firebug on Firefox, the other one is Chrome, okay. So I mean, of course, Chrome is the browser. What we have on Chrome are developer tools, okay. they're they're pretty awesome, okay. They're very similar to Firebug, okay. So I'll actually wait for the app. Since that's loaded up, let's say google.com. Okay, yeah, see, here's the network tab, okay, for Google Chrome. And if you want to look at, say, like a specific element, okay, we can actually use this. Oh, by the way, let me ask you all if you all have started like using Firebug or developer tools. Are you all comfortable with that tool, or like these tools? um, you use Firebug, very good.
You know what happened with my Firebug, no?
I don't know what happened.
Oh, you don't remember. Uh, 11.2, Mozilla 7.2 does not support Firebug. I'm
Oh,
not.
really?
I'll have to reinstall Ubuntu completely.
So can you install Google Chrome on your machine?
No, no, no. There's everything in my machine. The thing is problem with
Your voice is
Ubuntu
not audible. Hello?
right now.
Yeah, right now it's a little audible. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this okay?
It actually feels like you're boxing with your mic.
Oh my God. No.
Uh,
The thing is,
yeah.
7.2 Mozilla Firebug is not. Uh, this is what I'm talking about is the VirtualBox Ubuntu.
Okay. So what I was going to say is, so let's actually look for a browser called Chromium. Okay. Chromium is like the uh, open source. I won't say open source, but kind of a hacked Google Chrome version for Ubuntu. And you all are using 11.10. So let's actually look at this guy, because I remember I've actually installed this, and it's pretty awesome. So let's actually get away from this one. So yeah, yeah. See, it's super simple. Okay, so I'll actually send this to you all via chat. Okay, via this GoToMeeting chat. Okay, so try this out. Okay, so this Chromium browser. Oh, it actually is Google Chrome. So you all are actually in luck then. Okay, so Chromium browser or Google Chrome for that matter comes with developer tools. Make sure that you all start using this tool, uh, because what is it? Because using developer tools actually keeps the developer informed as to what exactly is happening on the web page, and at the same time also tells the people who you are interviewing with as to how much do you know about your say like a web page or say like a web application, because these developer tools are awesome. Okay, so yeah, I mean, long story short, uh, start using developer tools. Okay, so now yeah, so we have already seen how data is transferred via, what is it, a get request. Now let's actually see how data is transferred via post. It's very simple. It's almost the same. All that we would change, okay, all that we would change, give me one second. Yeah, all that we would change is the type. Okay, nothing else changes. Okay, unlike the I mean, even on a regular form nothing changes. Okay, so just as that, or the only thing that will change is here, where you would get the data from post. Which is post. Okay, now let's actually refresh the page since we have made a change to JavaScript. Okay, okay, so now we'll actually hit man, and let's keep an eye on the net tab, which is submit. See, at this point it is a post request. Okay, because we are actually we can actually see that post appears in front of index.php. We click on it. Okay, and everything in here would remain as it is, but the post data, okay, is gender is equal to man. Okay, because that is the data that we sent over. Okay, and if you actually refresh it again, and I mean, of course the response is going to be police complete, and everything remains as it is, nothing changes. The only thing changes is the method or the mechanism in which the data is passed. Okay, we would reload it again. Okay, this time we'll send, say that the gender is woman. We'll say that at that point the data would again show up, and in post all that we are doing is we are actually replacing the gender of the user. Okay, from man to woman. Okay, and the good thing is this network tab also gives an idea as to how much time did it actually take to complete the request. Okay, it took a millisecond to fetch the data. Okay, so I mean, these are a few things that always help us, and here if I actually hover onto it, okay, I actually am getting a detailed report as to how much time did it take for DNS lookup, then how much time did it take for connecting, then how much time did it take for sending the data. Because once the connection is made, what happens is the data is not sent over at the first request. The connection is made and then the request is sent. After the request is sent, what happens? Yeah, after the request and the data are sent, what happens is we'll have to wait for the server to process. Once the server processes are complete, we would actually receive the data back. So this timeline tool, or like the timeline tab, actually gives us a very good idea as to what is happening and how much time is anything taking. Okay, okay, so that's why, so that's how we can actually track our requests that are going out in terms of time and the I won't say IP address, because we wouldn't have remote IP if it's a DNS, but since it's localhost, we actually are getting the remote IP address. Okay, yeah, so that is how a post request is actually made. Now at this point again, let me ask you all if there are any questions with either Firebug or Ajax request or get or post, because after this what we'll do is we'll actually build a little more complex application where there are multiple pieces. Okay, where we will actually load at least 5 or 10 components which are static, and then we'll actually load 1 or 2 components which would actually look for asynchronous data, and then we'll actually take that data and we'll actually put it into the database. So that in itself is going to be a full-fledged application. Do you all have any questions? No questions. Okay, so the next thing is going to be, let's actually take a 5 or 10 minutes, okay, and see how would you all prepare yourselves, assuming that you all have to take a phone call from a vendor guy in like 5 or 10 days from now. What all would you have to have an idea of, I have a basic idea of, okay, in terms of getting your resumes out there and figuring out what do people want. Okay, the easiest way is to begin by looking at existing jobs. Okay, Sheryl Sandberg. Okay, so yeah, probably let's begin with this one. Okay, okay, so what they want is they want the developer to have an idea of Zen framework, okay, which is an MVC framework. Then they want Doctrine, which is a, what is it, object data mapper, and then experience with jQuery, which you all have, MySQL expertise, good, HTML5, CSS, yeah, see JavaScript and Ajax, you all are getting an idea of that one. Okay, SCM experience, okay, aware of web standards, their purpose. See again, see these are a few things that we'll have to take a look at as we go forward. Okay, see web standards, one of the thing that we actually like looked at was a good understanding as to how should data be displayed on a web page. Okay, and then they want somebody with good documentation and organization skills. So have you all heard of Jira, by the way?
Yes,
Anybody?
I worked on it.
You worked on it.
Yes.
Nirajan and Munjal? No. So okay, so Jira is more of a bug tracking tool. Okay, make sure that you all make a note of this one. It's a bug tracking tool. It is used for project management, where people can actually or teams rather can actually say that X number of tickets are done, X number of tickets are in progress, and if somebody is working on those tickets, who are they, and what are the comments that are being made for that ticket, and so on. So it's more or less a ticket tracking, bug tracking, and a project tracking tool. Okay, and Confluence is another. I mean, it's not another. It's what is it? It is Jira, but it is just that Jira is for project management and Confluence is more of an aggregation tool where you can actually store data, build team boards. What else can you do? Have swim boards. So swim board. So let's actually take a look at it. So this will actually give you all a very good idea. Swim lanes. Project. See, project plan is swim lanes. Okay. See, this doesn't help. So what we need is an example. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. See, this isn't very good. So is so this is an example of a swim lane. Okay. To understand which which, so assuming that you all are building a dashboard. Okay. In the dashboard there are 5 or 10 different modules. So via this swim lane, what we can understand is how is who is the owner for customer management. Okay, at that point this module would have a project manager who would deal with the client information team. Okay, credit management, there would be, I mean probably, I mean normally real time there would be the same manager who would be working with the client information team, and that product manager would be responsible for price management, credit management, and customer management. And then there are other teams, okay, and each team would probably have one or two project managers, and they will be in touch with the business, and they'll actually come back to the development team and give us the give us the tickets. And this is a very good swim lane uh, diagram for us to understand who is the owner for each module. Okay, so do a little research on what are swim lanes. Okay, so that, I mean, all this I would say is due diligence. Okay, it is always good to be informed rather than getting surprised in an interview. And I mean, trust me, you all are going to be surprised in the interview, because I mean, there are a few things that we all would know, there are a few things that we might not know. So with that assumption, it is important that you all aggregate as much information as you can. Okay, assuming that there is something else out there that you do not know, and that will surprise you. Okay, so it's always good to keep yourself, like, or collect as much information as you can. Let's actually look at another one. So this is in Dallas, Texas. Okay, so this one, see, this one's a pretty more or much more chilled out job description. I like these descriptions. Okay, probably this should have been the one that I would have opened, should have opened. Okay, they're saying that is comfortable on fast-paced projects, can creatively solve problems and overcome unique challenges, has fluency in PHP, MySQL, CSS, and JavaScript. So see, these four, you all already have a good understanding and an idea. Okay, and understand us. Yeah, see, exactly. See, this is probably the most important thing. Okay, do not get confused or do not get surprised when stuff breaks. Okay, that happens all the time, and that is why people hire developers. Okay, people do not hire developers to create what is it, web applications that are completely awesome from the get go. Obviously there will be some kind of a scope creep, or obviously there will be cases where your application will not work, but that's fine. Always stay calm and make sure that you fix the things ASAP. Okay, and then can take responsibility as a point person for third party services. Yeah, so here this is the part where people would analyze what kind of a communication skill do you have. Okay, because here you actually would be representing the company with third party services. As an example, I actually represented Dr. Oz's team with the Bright Cove team. So Bright Cove uh, is a is a company that actually provides uh, how do I put it, flash players. Okay, so for our videos. Okay, so I worked with them. Then I worked with another team at Adobe for our click tracking for our ads. Okay, I mean, the sub team that I had to work with was is called Site Catalyst, or they call themselves Omniture. Okay, so yeah, I mean, long story short, it is always important for you all to have good communication skills. Okay, where you all might have to work with third party services, and not third party services as in not just external clients. You might even have to work with internal clients. Okay, you might represent the BI team, or you might represent the device development team or something of that sort, and there might be an internal customer, say finance team or legal team or compliance team, who actually want some widget or some kind of information from your team. Okay, and if you are chosen to represent your team, at that point you'll have to take responsibility as a point person for that communication. Okay, yeah, he's comfortable with agile development cycles, and given that, I mean, you all are starting. Okay, it is obviously going to be new for you all, irrespective of what development cycle you work with. Okay, and it's actually good that you all would jump into agile development, given that there are other development cycles which are not very suitable for fast paced projects. Okay, So yeah, I mean, go through these job requirements. Do not get uh, like surprised, or like don't worry about any of this stuff in terms of technology. I mean, like I said, technology is just a piece of code, and you'll just have to learn it. Okay, so this is in Houston. Nice. Okay, yeah, and see, when they are not asking for a lot, all they are looking for is 2 years of experience that has Linux server background, which is nice. Okay, so you all have that experience. Okay, and what they want is Code Igniter. Okay, see, Code Igniter is another MVC framework. It's pretty simple. Okay, these are all PHP frameworks: say Code Igniter, Zen framework, Symfony, Cake PHP, and so on. These are all simple PHP frameworks. We'll actually look at that. Let me double check. Come on. So I don't know what exactly do we have. Scroll. Yeah. So we actually would be dealing with Code Igniter and Zen. Nice. Okay, so as soon as we are done with Ajax, okay, we'll actually be looking at web services in like the next few sessions. So for the next 2 or 3 sessions, we'll stick with Ajax. Okay, we'll be building like an end-to-end application in Ajax that would uh, yeah, that would actually be getting fetching data and also transferring data. So at this point, I've actually looked at this thing, which is the project. So did you all like decide what kind of project do you all want to work on? It's a tangential question. Uh,
We thought of a smaller eBay, right? Before we discussed.
I mean, yeah, I was just throwing options. So yeah, I mean, pick one, and you all have to build one application. Yeah, and given that you're already in Ajax, uh, I mean, the plan was for you all to build out the project by now in regular HTTP, and then transfer components of it into Ajax. Okay, so you all have to, I mean, like, probably fasten it at this point, because this project would actually be the reference for you all when you all take the interviews. Okay, so Nirajan and Munjal, do you all have you all picked the project? eBay like website. Okay, not yet. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I would say it's about time you all start that. Okay, and from here on, what we'll have are, though we'll have 3 hour sessions, let's actually make them 2 hour sessions. Okay, plus 1 hour would be just to practice while I'm around. The only reason that I wanted this way is, if there are any questions, I'll actually be around and we can actually knock them out, because I can keep on talking and I can keep on like knocking out, I mean, I can knock out one topic at a time. But once I get to one of these positions, say JSON P or web services, it kind of would have an irreversible effect, because we can only go forward after that. Okay, you're thinking to do some kind of a search engine for universities. Dude, I mean, that's a very good idea, man. So what you can do is you can actually okay, so what Munjal says is he's thinking of doing some kind of a search engine application for universities. Okay, okay, so so here's the idea. I'll actually, so let's think out loud. Okay, and let's actually frame an application. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually uh, 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 so let's actually close this guy out. Okay, so let's Google it. Okay, so you can, what you can do, Munjal, is you can actually copy the layout of Google. Okay, let's actually, I hate this thing. Okay, so you can actually copy the layout of Google, keep it simple. Okay, all you'll have is your application's title. Okay, you can actually have some fancy links down here. Okay, and all you'll do is you'll say, see, I actually studied at JNTU, okay, in Hyderabad. So let's, if I actually put in JNTU, see, that should show up. Okay, and since I want to say I'm from Hyderabad, I'll say JNTU Hyderabad. I don't want transcripts, but stuff show up. Shows up. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually build an autocomplete function. And remember, the other day I guess we were talking about jQuery UI. Okay, jQueryui.com. Okay, so with jQuery UI, okay, what you can do is you can actually use this autocomplete feature. Okay, it almost comes out of the box. Okay, all you'll have to do is you'll say, um, okay, yeah. So you'll say if you say JN. Okay, since of course since JNT is not available here, if you say J, you should actually show all the uh, universities which actually have the letter J in them. Okay, and you can actually make a dashboard for website for universities, where universities can actually join your website. Okay, so since yours is a search engine for universities, right? So you can actually begin by building a database of universities, say 10 or 15 universities. Okay, and then you'll actually have an autocomplete field which would actually query the universities. Okay, probably the second step I would say is to add a profile page. Okay, add a registration page, login page, and a profile page. Okay, so a university can actually, or people from a university, not people, again students, a university itself can add themselves. Okay, and there would be a university profile page. So if somebody clicks on JavaScript as an example, okay, okay, you should actually redirect them, or you should actually show all the universities which actually have JNTU in their name. Okay, and then on click of the link, okay, you should actually take them to the university's profile page. uh, does that make sense? um, I get it, but just freaking out. Yeah, man, see, dude, I would say stop freaking out and start working. I mean, see, I mean, the easiest way to get, I mean, rid of any inhibitions that you have is to start working. That's like the biggest. What is it? I mean, that's like the biggest mantra that I can tell you. Because trust me, man, everybody crosses through that bridge. So you'll have to cross that bridge. You cannot actually stand on the other side and think about it. You'll have to cross that bridge at some point. It better be before you get a job, rather than you having to cross it after getting the job, right? So I mean, I would suggest. Uh, so if my problem is if I fail where I start, I know it's wrong. I'm trying to take that out of me. Yeah, I mean, dude. I mean, see, that was the one that I was actually showing on that job description. I mean, trust me again. I don't want to sound like I'm not that I'm a prophet or I'm making a prophecy, but we are going to fail, obviously, you know. But the point is, how do we fix when we fail? Okay, trust me. I mean, not just your application, even my application would have hundreds of bugs. I mean, I don't know hundreds, but there'll be bugs. Okay, but as soon as we find that bug, the first thing has to be, how do we what is it solve it? Okay, or the other way would be, how do we blame it on somebody else? Okay, so these are the two things that you'll have to think: either solve it or blame it on someone else. So these are two things that you'll always have to think about. Okay, so yeah, I mean, don't worry about failing. I'm pretty sure not just you, all of us would fail the first time. But I mean, like one of those photos on Facebook with those inspirational quotes says that it's not about how you feel, but it's what you do after you fail, right? That is important. So it's important as to what you do after you fail the first time. So yeah, I mean, forget about failing and all this inspirational part. Just yeah, I mean, see, man, the easiest thing. Okay, so let's actually break it into tasks. Okay, for you. Okay, the first thing. Okay, just build this page. Okay, all this page would do is this page should take some kind of text input. Okay, there's a big text box. Okay, there's a very big text box, and as soon as you like start typing something, as soon as the user starts typing something, you'll have to fetch data from the, forget database for now. Okay, just recreate jQuery UI autocomplete. Okay, just recreate this part. Okay, just recreate this part. Okay, I mean, if you recreate this part, dude, I mean, that's pretty much done. That's pretty much job done, because the next part is going to be simple stuff where you'll actually replace. Okay, where you'll actually replace this array, okay, with data coming in from the database, and I'll show you all how. It's pretty simple. I mean, like I said, it's just code, right? So it's pretty simple. So obviously the first step is going to get started. So I mean, I would suggest you all to start. Once you start, trust me, it will be a cakewalk. Yep.
What is your opinion about a site like Quora, miniature one?
Cool. I mean, yeah, that's a very good, and honestly, it's these, I mean, like, both these websites are very simple websites, right? I mean, forget about login part, because what Quora does is somebody asks a question and people start jumping in. It's pretty much like crowdsourcing for advices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the third thing, so I mean, yeah, the first thing that you'll have to do is allow a user to write a question, or like a put in a question. Then you'll have to allow more than one users to answer the question. Yeah, it's again, it's pretty simple. So we have 10 minutes, right? So let's actually see if we can actually build one of those things. Okay, so let's close this out. Not that I'm going on a tangential thing again, but I just want to show you all how simple it is. Okay, so cd Quora. Okay, so let's say vi add question. Okay, dot php. Okay, so this is going to be an html page, right? Head, head. Okay, so let's actually put in title, body. This is going to be a form. Okay, so method has to be post. Okay, so all that you're doing here is you're saying input type is equal to text, name is equal to question, right? And then you'll have a submit button. See, with HTML5 you can directly have a submit button. That's the nice part. We'll actually go through it in a little bit. Submit value is equal to submit. Okay, now, okay, so once you load this page, okay, what you'll get is a way to store that question. Okay, you'll actually get a way to persist the question, and the way you'll persist that question is obviously via MySQL, right? Root MySQL admin. Okay, create database Quora as an example. Okay, so for a question, all that you'll have is create table questions. Okay, the first thing is obviously going to be the question ID. Let's say QID int. Okay, and you want that to be not null, obviously, and it's going to be auto increment because you don't want to give in data every time that you add a question. Okay. Oh, you know what? I screwed it up. Wow. Use Quora. So I'll say create table. Okay. So the next thing obviously is going to be the question. Let's say varchar, I don't know, thousand characters, and then obviously you would need a user ID, which means that you would need a users table first. Okay. Keep that in mind because a user has to ask a question. Okay. See, that's it. That's all that you'll have in here. Okay. What happened? User ID int question is varchar user ID is int. Oh, you know what? It says create tables, which is wrong. Okay, so there can only be one auto increment column and must be defined as key. Fair enough. So we'll have to say primary key is QID. Okay, what happened here was I gave an auto increment column. Okay, what auto increment column does, or what the rule in MySQL says is there can only be one auto increment column and it has to have an index on it. Okay, now by saying primary key is QID, this should solve this error. Okay, that should solve it. Now show, what is it, show tables. Okay, so questions. So for now let's actually say that user 1, okay, which is the admin user, is always putting in the data. Okay, so let's say MySQL connect localhost root admin MySQL select db is going to be Quora $con. Okay, and let's be good programmers. Let's say or die. No, so I mean this would only show up if there is no database error, which would never happen. Okay, I mean at least locally. Now let's actually put in a query. Okay, okay, so let's be good programmers again. Let's say question is equal to dollar underscore post question question. Okay, MySQL query is obviously going to be the insert. So we'll say insert. Let's exit it for now. We'll have to open it up again, but let's exit for now. Insert into table. Table is questions, right? Questions. And since we are not giving in the ID, we'll say question comma user underscore ID. Yeah, values. Okay, so the first thing would be we are saying we are okay. So let's actually say this. So let's use double quotes so we can use single quotes for our columns. I mean column values. Okay, so the first thing is that we are sending in the question. Okay, that is this guy. Okay, and since it's MySQL, you'll have to wrap it in single quotes. So that's a stupid thing, but what are we gonna do? Okay, MySQL query, and yeah, the next thing is like we have said, it is going to be defaulted to user ID 1. And I mean like Pooja, you can actually build the users table once you start building the application. Okay, so this is the result. Okay, and since this is just an insert, okay, we wouldn't even need the result. Okay, We just process the data and we would say question inserted. Okay, and here what I'll say is action is equal to was it add question dot php? Yeah, it's add question dot php. So what happens is on submit, the data would come in, okay, and this question would be populated in here, and that should go into database. Let's actually see if this works. Okay, and training Quora add question dot php. Let's try. So it's www.training.com slash Quora slash add question dot php. Okay, before I load this page, let me make sure that this would only execute when submit is available. Okay, so for that I'll say if is set, or I could even say if not empty dollar underscore post submit, right? So that would take care of this loading before a post is made. Okay, now let's quickly indent this code. Looks better. Okay, so now let's go on to the page. It is not going to look beautiful, but this is just a question. What is cool about PHP? Okay, so this is a random question which is submit, and then we would say question inserted. Okay, so now let's actually split it horizontally so that we have this code up on the top window, and I'll say minus root, and since I also already know the database name, I'll say Quora, I'll say show tables, so I'll say select star from questions, and it says it's empty, so which means that the, oh, see, I actually inserted into the wrong table. It was supposed to be questions. See, this is a bug. Okay, so there is nothing to worry. We will always make errors, but it is important that we have to fix those errors. Okay, so now I'll again say what is cool about PHP. See, okay, so I'll say submit. Again, it says question inserted. Okay, now let's see if that works. See, there's your Quora.com. Okay, or at least the first step to build Quora.com, and all it took us was 10 minutes, right? So I mean, like I've said again, it is always important for us to stop planning at some point and start executing. Okay, planning is always good, it's very important, but executing the plan is probably double important. I don't know if that's a real term, but yeah, it's more important than planning. So 10 minutes is all it took for us to build this basic beginner Quora application. Okay, so the second thing obviously is going to be where here we already have the question. Okay, now we would need a display questions screen. We would obviously need a screen where somebody clicks a question and we'll have to show the chain. Okay, the way we would show the chain is going to be we would need an answers table. Okay, in the answers table we would have the answers id, the answer, the user who answered that the user who posted that answer, and finally the answer, I mean the question for which the answer was posted. Okay, so these four columns, and obviously like we have discussed, uh you can't hear me, can you all hear me? uh Munjal, Nirajan, yeah, Munjal can hear me. Okay, Nirajan can hear me too. Pooja, can you hear me? Okay, it looks like Pooja can't hear me. Hello.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, can you hear me, Pooja?
But I still can't hear you guys.
Oh, that's bad. We hear
Hold
you.
up.
Can you hear me? Um, can you disconnect and log in again? Yeah, okay, go for it. Yeah. Yeah, so Munjal and Nirajan, do you all have any questions with this basic application? No. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so this it's as simple as that. The biggest thing, obviously, Pooja, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can right now.
Perfect. So yeah, I mean,
All right, so I have one question actually.
yeah,
Okay, as we are making a database, that's true. I mean, probably it's just because I'm missing it. But when you connect the database with your website, uh, like for the website, we are making a host name and everything, and for the database, we are actually making an application which is going to connect with our web page, so it can fetch data from that application. Am I right?
right.
Okay, that's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so here this one here is the web page, okay, which is actually feeding the data. Okay. I mean, if your question is if this is a remote server, we will give the remote server name. That's it. We can even give training.com at this point because it is so localhost or training.com all map back to 127.0.0, and all this is interested in is getting the host name of the database server. Can we store images? See, we can, Nirajan. We would have to store it as a blob. Okay, a blob is a binary large object. Okay, I would suggest against that. We so what I would do is we will actually store the images on disk. Okay, or in a folder. Let's say upload files, and we will actually store the path to the image in the database. And whenever somebody requests for an image, we would get the path, we would retrieve the image from the disk, and then we would deliver it to the user. Yeah. See, I mean, the only reason for that is the I mean, database or any database was never built to store large binary objects. Okay, and assuming that one of the columns in that table is indexed, okay, at that point the data that is indexed and re-indexed would be huge. I mean, I'm just like giving you all the reason why you shouldn't store images in a MySQL database. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, we can actually store databases. We'll actually store it as a blob. So it's actually called blob. How share photo websites work? Yeah, they actually store images on the disk. Okay, say in C slash, as an example, C slash upload files or C slash images. Okay, in the images folder they might have a pattern in which they would say that S Sriparasa. Okay, that's me, that's my user ID. I've actually uploaded I don't know, fancy cat image. Okay, as an example. Okay, so I would say the image would be S Sriparasa fancy cat, and that would be stored in the database. And when somebody clicks on that image, okay, the image path is retrieved from the database, but the image is always stored on the disk. uh, does that make sense, Munjal? So they have a saved path for images, which is exactly, and the path is saved in the database. Okay, so that will never happen. Okay, the way the permissions work on a web server is neither you nor anybody has root access to the web machine. I mean, I'll take that back. Okay, there are a few users who actually have read-write access, and you and I probably wouldn't be one of those. Only a team called operations, okay, tech operations team would have access to that box, that server. And if somebody deletes that image, they're screwed. Okay, and at the same time, assuming that it was Friday night, people were drunk and they log on to the server to do some work. Okay, and then they issue a remove command. Okay, the case that handles that one is replication. Okay, a real time, I probably might have mentioned this already, nothing would live on a single server, everything would be replicated. Okay, the minimum replication count is always considered to be 3. Okay, so if you store an image on one box, the image is actually stored on 3 boxes. Okay, uh, pretty much, I mean, it's part of server architecture. Have you all heard of RAID 1, RAID 2, RAID 3, RAID 5? I mean,
Yeah.
Google them. Yeah. So that is a way where you'll actually guarantee. So I'll actually send that over to you. RAID 2, RAID 3, and RAID 5. So this architecture guarantees the replication. Okay, and again, 1, 2, 3, and 5 are not replication counts. They are the algorithms in which the replication happens. Okay, so have a basic idea of how this is done. But long story short, replication would save the day. Okay, even if somebody deletes it, the data would be stored on a different box. Video call and image sent to someone, or they store that too. Yeah, I mean, again, see, that is, yeah, I mean, I don't know about the video calls.
Video calls or UDP transfers, they can be stored. They are
Y-
UDP packets, and even if they're lost, they are on the go.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
make a Skype call or a Yahoo call, you can store them.
yep, yep. But yeah, I mean, is that a privacy issue? I mean, nobody really cares. I mean, right? Because all your information is already on the internet. So
Yeah, any telephones or talking on the go is never stored.
yeah,
You cannot store it. I mean, you can record it obviously if there's a site for it, but otherwise, no. Usually they're not.
yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, irrespective of who is in that hot seat, everybody does it, and we'll just have to live with it. The only thing is, I mean, the only good thing rather, I would say, is since they run through algorithms, everything is not really noticed. But yeah, it's always good to be careful with what we say and what we speak. I mean, if we really think it's private, it's always good to be done on a face to face basis. Don't trust FaceTime, or don't trust anything. uh, yeah, but yeah, so this is, I mean, this is how simple we can actually like, this is how simple the projects have to be. Okay, they, I mean, like, it took 10 minutes for me to build a small page. Okay, I would assume that, I mean, if we start coding, it'll take probably 10 or 15 minutes or not more than that for all of us to build simple pages. Okay, so like I've said, forget the application, m- divide the application into the smallest component and build components. Okay, and at some point you'll have to merge all the components into one. Okay, so this is like the basic one pager Quora application, where which would allow adding questions. Okay, and Munjal, you have an idea as to what, how the autocomplete has to work, right? So yeah, I mean, take some time out and see if you all can build your applications. um, yeah,
Okay.
so it's 3:15. Okay, there are 45 minutes left. Okay, what I would suggest is practice something. I'll be around for more 45 minutes more. Okay, and let me know if you all have any questions. Okay, so from here on, let's, at least during the weekends, let's keep like 40 minutes or 45 minutes aside where you all would just practice. I mean, given that it's the we're coming to an end in like the next few weeks.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be around. Let me know if you all have any questions. By the way, if you all don't mind, can you all tell me what are you all practicing or what are you all working on? eBay like website. Okay, so that is the project. So are you all working on? Okay, so are you working on the project, Nirajan, now, or are you working on something just like a practice session? Okay, you're working on a project. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, if you're working on a project, okay, if anybody is working on a project, feel free to log off. Okay, because, or I mean, feel free to stay along. I mean, stay along. Okay, because if it is a project, I mean, I'm not sure if I can be of help right away. But if there are any questions with anything, I'll be around. Let me know. Hey guys, sorry about it. I actually got into a conference call which looked like it would never end. Yeah. So Munjal, do you want to take a look at the memory issue that you have? Yeah. Okay. So let's. So the first thing that you have to do is you'll have to take a look at how much RAM do you have. Should I make you the presenter? Let's do it. In the meantime, Nirajan and Pooja, are you all good? Do you all have any questions? No. Good. So I guess I made you the presenter. Munjal, did you get that request? You didn't get anything. Okay. So let me close it out. Not sure if it's a memory issue, but let's see. So I actually made you the presenter. I'm making you the presenter again. Did you get the become presenter request or something? Not in request. Hmm? How else can I do that? Now? Okay. So Pooja, Nirajan, are you all there? I'll try and make one of you all presenter. And let's see if you all. Oh, make Pooja. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if you are getting it now. Okay. So you are the presenter now. 1.41 gigs. Okay, perfect. So yeah, the first thing that you'll have to do, Munjal, is to close the what is it? Close the close this thing out, the virtual box, because you'll have to verify how much uh, how much RAM do you have. We'll have to verify that. So can you close the VM? Okay, so now let's actually click that. Let's go to settings. Settings. Let's go to you'll go to system. Yeah, so in here, what you have is you have given a gig of RAM. So can you try and see if you can increase the RAM and see if that helps you? Whoa, whoa, whoa. You wouldn't have to give everything. I mean, say, yeah, probably 1.5 gigs. Probably, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you give everything at that point, the original system wouldn't have anything. Before you start, can you? I'm sorry. Can you close it again? So I should have mentioned this. So there is another thing. Just a power of, yeah, yeah, and open up settings again. Go to display. Yeah. So enable 2D acceleration. Yep. Yeah. So click OK. Yeah. So now start Ubuntu. Yeah, so probably if not from this restart, from the next restart you should actually see a little progress. I'm not sure if it will actually be a lot of progress, given that uh, I mean a process is CPU driven, right? So the CPU has to be, I mean, it probably has to be like more powerful to make it run faster. uh, One other thing to keep in mind would be how many applications do you have open both in the host and the guest. So that will be another thing to consider. But looks like I've messed up with guest edition, but somehow it does not. It's not a big issue. Okay. Or you can even look at another operating system called Ubuntu. Okay. It's pretty much Ubuntu, but it's actually faster, and it's actually a much lighter version of Ubuntu. So it's actually 4 o'clock. So let me quickly ask Nirajan and Pooja if you all have any questions. Nirajan and Pooja. Yeah. If you don't have any questions, feel free to. Oh, you don't have any other questions. So can you quickly verify if you still see that it's slow? Because the only thing that I can think of is the memory issue. Yeah. See, I mean, okay, that's nice, but yeah, but I mean, the easiest way, Munjal, is to, I mean, if you notice that it's still slow, the easiest way probably is to like trash this system, okay, and actually build a new one. I mean, what I mean by that is delete this operating system, okay, and build a new one, because VirtualBox is commodity software, okay, so it is not built for speed. It is built for running an application for the moment, okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's fast, but if you still see that it's a little slow, let me know. We'll let us build a new VirtualBox, okay. Okay. So if there are no more questions, let us call it a day. The next session would be tomorrow at 1 p.m. again. Okay. Tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll actually take the idea that we have with Ajax, okay, and we'll actually build an application which is data driven, okay, which will be end to end. So we'll actually build a page with 3 or 4 static components and 1 or 2 dynamic components, okay, and we'll actually see how data would be like how data would be interchanged between the client and server while the page stays as it is. Okay. Okay. So thank you guys. Let's regroup tomorrow. Okay.